All right, so welcome back, everybody. You ready for another deep dive? We're tackling AI ethics today, but with a twist.
A historical twist.
Exactly. Our guide is Demosthenes Emergency Broadcast, Ancient Greece's Warnings for the AI Apocalypse. Crazy title, right? But it's all about connecting the dots between ancient Greece and today's crazy tech world.
You know, you're bombarded with AI news constantly, all these dystopian fears and promises.
It's exhausting. So this deep dive, we're taking a different path, looking at ancient Greece, how they dealt with similar issues.
Because history often repeats itself, right?
Totally. So get ready for Demosthenes battling fake news, like way before Twitter, and how Athenians were all about active citizenship, not just scrolling and liking.
And we'll even touch on the myth of Prometheus. What does stealing fire from the gods have to do with AI? You'll find out.
It's all connected.
Because the ancient Greeks, they were dealing with tech disruption too, just in a different form.
Right. Their insights are surprisingly relevant. Okay, so first up, episode 1 of Demosthenes Emergency Broadcast. Demosthenes, this Athenian orator, he was warning everyone about Philip II in Macedon.
This guy was like the master manipulator of his time, using disinformation tactics that seem eerily familiar today.
Yeah, it's like fake news is nothing new. But Demosthenes, he was calling Philip II out on his BS, saying he used bribes, fake documents, even funded these seemingly neutral groups to, like, stir up trouble in Athens.
Divide and conquer, classic tactic. And guess what? It still works.
Right. And this quote from Demosthenes stuck with me. He said, "A state is better governed by the worst sort of men who are united than by the most virtuous who are divided." Chilling, right? Especially with AI now being used to spread disinformation and sow discord.
Absolutely. It's like that stat from the World Economic Forum, 96%, a whopping 96% of cybersecurity experts, they think AI-driven disinformation campaigns could destabilize democracies by 2030.
That's just 10 years from now. It's scary stuff. Like, imagine AI-generated audio that can perfectly mimic world leaders saying stuff to incite chaos.
Oh yeah, that's already happening. Deepfakes, synthetic media, it's all out there.
It's like a dystopian movie come to life. But, okay, before we spiral into despair, the source material does offer some potential solutions. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right, there's hope.
Exactly. One idea is watermarking AI-generated content, so you can easily tell what's real and what's, fabricated by an algorithm, like what Google's doing with its Synthety technology.
Transparency is key. Let people know what they're dealing with.
Right. And then there's this concept of rhetoric gyms, basically like a mental workout to help people spot AI-generated content and manipulation tactics.
Like a boot camp for critical thinking?
Exactly. It's about reviving those skills the ancient Greeks valued so much, analyzing arguments, spotting logical fallacies, essential stuff in the age of information overload.
Because let's face it, our current social media landscape, it doesn't exactly reward critical thinking.
No, it's all about outrage, quick takes, getting those likes. It's the opposite of the Athenian ideal of active citizenship.
Oh, the Athenians, they took civic engagement seriously. You had to participate in the political process, like attending assemblies, serving on juries.
Imagine that today. People getting fined for missing a town hall meeting.
It was considered your duty. They even had fines for people who skipped out on the ecclesia, their main assembly.
Wow, that's a far cry from our current culture where we're bombarded with info, but often feel powerless to actually do anything. It's like that statistic from the Edelman Trust Barometer. Only 16% of Gen Z trust institutions to solve global challenges. That's a serious lack of faith.
Yeah, that's a big problem. And you know what's partly to blame? AI algorithms. They're designed to keep us hooked, not necessarily informed. They prioritize engagement over truth, serving up content that triggers strong emotions, even if it's divisive or misleading.
It's a vicious cycle. But, the source material does offer a glimmer of hope. This example from Taiwan, the vTaiwan platform, they're actually using AI to facilitate consensus building on legislation, gathering input from diverse perspectives and trying to find common ground.
It's like a digital agora.
Exactly. A space for thoughtful deliberation using tech to actually bridge divides. Pretty cool, huh?
It shows AI can be a force for good. But it all depends on how we design and use it. Which brings us to ethics, the heart of the matter.
And to explore that, we're turning to the myth of Prometheus. The titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, but then got punished big time by Zeus.
Chained to a rock with an eagle pecking at his liver. Brutal.
Right. But it's not just about the punishment. It's about this whole idea of innovation, power, and responsibility. And the source material makes this connection to AI by quoting Plato. In Phaedrus, he says, "Rhetoric without ethics is feeding shadows to the soul."
deep stuff.
Right. But how does this relate to AI? Like, what are the shadows we need to be wary of?
Well, think of AI like fire, right? It has this incredible potential for good, but it can also burn us if we're not careful.
It's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Take OpenAI's GPT-4, for example. This thing is amazing. It can tutor students, write code, even compose poetry, but it can also be used to create sophisticated phishing scams, spread misinformation, same algorithm, different purposes.
The dual-use dilemma. So how do we ensure that AI is used for good? I mean, it's one thing to acknowledge the dangers, but how do we actually prevent them? That's the real challenge.
And it's a challenge the ancient Greeks grappled with too. That's why the source material turns to Aristotle and his idea of the golden mean.
The golden mean. Tell me more.
Aristotle believed that virtue, the best way to live, is all about finding balance. The right balance between extremes. Not too much, not too little.
So applied to AI, it's about finding that sweet spot between innovation and caution.
Right. Embracing progress, but not at the expense of our ethical principles. It's about making sure AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
That makes sense. It's not about being anti-technology, it's about being pro-humanity. But how do we actually put that into practice, especially with something as complex as AI? It seems like a moving target.
It is a moving target, and one of the most important things is education.
Absolutely. We need to equip future generations with the knowledge and skills to navigate this AI-powered world.
Right. They need to understand the technical stuff, but also the ethical and societal implications. And you know what's crazy? The source material cites a Stanford study that found 67% of educators say their students are already using AI to write essays.
Wow, that's a lot. So are these AI tools like ChatGPT helpful or harmful? Are they a crutch or a powerful learning aid? It's a tricky question.
It's a big debate. On one hand, these tools are amazing. They can generate human-quality text in seconds. But there's a concern that over-reliance could stifle critical thinking, creativity, those essential human skills.
It's like the debate about calculators in math class.
Right. Are we helping students or making them dependent on these tools? It's not just about essays either. It's about all those essential skills. Problem solving, critical thinking, even empathy. Can AI erode those too? Big questions.
We're at this crossroads, trying to figure out how to integrate these powerful tools without losing something essential about what it means to be human.
That's a great way to put it. And the source material doesn't shy away from these concerns. It warns against becoming overly dependent on AI, potentially undermining our capacity for independent thought, for creativity, for emotional intelligence.
That's a sobering thought. But there's also the potential for AI to enhance education, right? Personalized learning, engaging educational experiences.
Oh, absolutely. And the source material highlights some of those innovations, like EdTech apps that use AI to personalize learning pathways, give feedback, even create immersive virtual environments.
That's cool. Give me an example. What are some of these ed tech tools doing?
Well, there's this app called Rhetoric AI. It uses chatbots to gamify Socratic dialogue, helping students develop their debate and critical thinking skills in a fun way.
That sounds amazing. It's like using AI to revive the ancient art of debate.
Exactly. And there are tons of other EdTech tools out there using AI to tailor learning to individual needs, make it more interactive. The potential is huge.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Leveraging AI's power while still prioritizing those essential human skills.
Finding that golden mean. But let's be real, there are some serious potential downsides to AI that we can't ignore. Job displacement, the spread of misinformation, algorithmic bias, these are real concerns.
Yeah, those are big ones. And they could have a profound impact on society. It's like the source material draws this parallel to the fall of Athens after the Peloponnesian War.
Internal strife and hubris played a role in their downfall. And the source material suggests we could be headed down a similar path if we're not careful.
That's a scary thought. It's a reminder that technology, even with all its benefits, can also be a force for destruction.
Which is why it's so important to have these conversations, to think critically about the ethical implications of AI and how we shape its development to benefit humanity.
Absolutely. So, speaking of shaping the future, the final episode of Demosthenes Emergency Broadcast focuses on building an AI-proof civilization.
An ambitious goal. But it's not about eliminating AI, it's about building a society that can harness its potential while mitigating the risks.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's about creating a world that's resilient, adaptable, and guided by strong ethical principles. But how do we actually do that? What does an AI-proof civilization actually look like?
Well, that's a question for part 2 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
We'll be back with more Athenian wisdom and insights into the future of AI.
Back again for more AI deep diving.
It's wild how these ancient Greek ideas are still so relevant. It's like they had a crystal ball or something and saw all this tech stuff coming.
They definitely understood human nature, that's for sure. All the power struggles, the potential for innovation to go wrong, it's all there in their stories and philosophies.
Like we were talking about last time, those parallels between Philip II spreading disinformation and what's happening with AI today.
Oh, yeah, that was chilling. And the Athenian obsession with active citizenship, that really got me thinking too. Like, are we too passive these days? Just consuming and reacting, not really engaging.
Big questions. But let's move on to something a little more hopeful. Remember, we left off talking about building an AI-proof civilization. This last episode of Demosthenes Emergency Broadcast really digs into that.
It's into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, but when I hear AI-proof, I got to ask, is that even possible? Can we really safeguard ourselves against something as powerful and like everywhere as AI?
Well, the source material makes it clear that AI-proof doesn't mean we get rid of AI or, like, control it completely. It's more about creating a society that can handle it, use its potential, but also minimize the risks.
Okay, so it's about resilience, adaptability,
Yeah.
but also like having strong ethical principles to guide us. But how do we even start building that? I mean, AI is evolving so fast, it feels like we're always a step behind.
It's true, it moves quickly. But the source material suggests that one of the most important things is to rethink how we govern AI. Remember those Athenian-inspired ideas about decentralized governance using blockchain?
Yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing. Using blockchain to create a totally transparent record of how AI is developed so anyone can see how these algorithms are made, what data they're using, how they're being used in the real world.
It's about lifting the veil of secrecy, right? No more black boxes.
Exactly. And that transparency could lead to more trust, help identify biases in algorithms, maybe even prevent people from using AI for bad stuff. I mean, imagine if every AI system had this blockchain record open for anyone to check.
It would be a game changer. We could hold developers accountable, trace decisions made by algorithms. It would be a whole new level of ethical oversight.
That's a powerful idea. But isn't blockchain still kind of like new and unproven? Wouldn't it make things super complicated?
True, it's not a simple fix. It would require a lot of collaboration, setting standards, figuring out protocols. Governments, tech companies, researchers, everyone would need to be on board.
It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
But I guess the potential benefits in terms of transparency and accountability, maybe they outweigh the challenges.
It's worth exploring, for sure. But let's not forget the other key Athenian principle, civic engagement. How do we get people involved, not just the experts?
Right. Where does that fit in with this whole AI-proof civilization idea?
That's where those neo-agoras come in, those spaces for learning and dialogue about AI ethics, remember. The source material argues that these spaces are crucial for creating informed citizens in this digital age. It's not just about abstract philosophy, it's about giving people the tools to understand how AI impacts their lives, giving them a voice in shaping its development.
I'm all for that. I mean, AI is going to affect everyone, so everyone should have a say,
Yeah.
right? Not just the tech giants and policymakers. But how do we create these neo-agoras? It sounds great in theory, but how do we actually make it happen?
It's a big challenge, no doubt. But the source material suggests a multi-pronged approach. We need to incorporate AI ethics into education, create online platforms for public debate, maybe even establish physical spaces like community centers where people can learn and discuss.
So a mix of online and offline initiatives, reaching people where they are. But even with all that, how do we make sure it's not just talk? How do we bridge the gap between discussing ethical AI and actually putting it into practice?
That's the key question, right? And it leads us back to that Athenian-inspired concept we keep coming back to, the oath of the algorithm. It's about making ethical principles a core part of AI development from the very beginning.
Yeah, the Hippocratic Oath for AI. I like that. But what would that look like? Can you give me some specifics?
Imagine AI developers taking a pledge to prioritize human well-being, to be transparent about their work, to ensure fairness, and to be accountable for the consequences. It would be a powerful statement, setting a new standard for the field.
It would be amazing to see that become the norm. But how do we move beyond symbolism? How do we make sure those ethical principles are woven into the fabric of AI development?
It's going to take a collective effort, for sure. Not just developers, but policymakers, educators, and the public, too. We need to create a culture of ethical AI, where these principles are built into every stage of the process, from research and design to actually using AI in the real world.
So it's a systemic shift, not just individual developers making pledges, but a whole new way of thinking about and approaching AI.
Exactly. It's a long-term goal, and it won't be easy. But the ancient Greeks, they show us that it's possible. They face their own dilemmas with technology and power, and their insights can help us navigate the uncharted waters of the AI age.
It's not about romanticizing the past or copying their solutions exactly. It's about learning from their struggles and their triumphs and applying their wisdom to the challenges we face today.
And realizing that the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's something we create through our choices, our actions, and our commitment to building a world where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
And we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into Demosthenes Emergency Broadcast.
It's been quite a journey exploring how ancient Greece can shed light on the ethical dilemmas of AI. Lots to think about.
Totally. But now is the time for action, right? We've talked about the dangers, the potential benefits, these Athenian-inspired solutions, but how do we actually build this AI-proof civilization? How do we move from theory to reality?
Well, the source material suggests it starts with a shift in our mindset. We can't just fear AI or try to control it completely. We need to shape it, guide its development in a way that aligns with our values, with what it means to be human.
Okay, so being proactive, not reactive. But where do we even begin? AI is developing so fast it feels like a constant race to keep up.
It's true, it's a fast-moving field. But the source material points to a few key areas. One is, remember those Athenian ideas about decentralized governance using blockchain technology?
Yeah, that was a pretty radical concept. Using blockchain to create this totally transparent record of AI development so anyone can see how algorithms are being built, what data they're using, how they're being used in the real world.
Exactly. Transparency is key. It builds trust, helps identify potential biases, and could even prevent AI from being used for harmful purposes. Imagine if every AI system had this blockchain record open for everyone to see.
It would be like a whole new level of accountability.
Yeah.
We could trace decisions made by algorithms, hold developers responsible for their creations.
That's the idea. Of course, it's not a simple solution. Blockchain technology is still evolving, and it would require a massive collaborative effort to make it work for AI governance.
I can imagine. Governments, tech companies, researchers, everyone would need to be on the same page.
Absolutely. But the potential benefits in terms of ethical oversight and transparency, they're significant. It's worth exploring for sure.
Okay, so blockchain for governance, that's one piece of the puzzle. But what about the Athenian emphasis on civic engagement? How do we get everyday people involved, not just the tech experts?
That's where those Neo-agoras come in. Those spaces for lifelong learning, for dialogue about AI ethics. Remember, the source material argues that these spaces are essential for creating informed citizens in the digital age.
Right. It's about empowering people to understand how AI is impacting their lives, giving them a voice in shaping its development.
Exactly. It's not just about abstract philosophy. It's about equipping people with the knowledge and skills to navigate this AI-powered world and to advocate for ethical AI development.
I love that idea. So how do we actually create these neo-agoras? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but what would that look like in practice?
The source material suggests a multifaceted approach. It could involve integrating AI ethics into school curricula, creating online platforms for public debate, or even establishing physical spaces like community centers or libraries where people can gather and discuss.
A mix of online and offline initiatives, reaching people where they are. I like it. But even with all those efforts, how do we ensure that it's not just talk? How do we bridge the gap between discussing ethical AI and actually seeing it implemented in the real world?
That's the million-dollar question. And it brings us back to that Athenian-inspired concept we keep circling around, the oath of the algorithm.
Ah, yes, the Hippocratic Oath for AI developers, embedding ethical principles into the very heart of AI development. I'm still fascinated by that idea.
Imagine a set of guidelines that all AI developers would pledge to uphold. Principles like transparency, accountability, fairness, a commitment to putting human well-being above all else. It would be a powerful symbol, setting a new ethical standard for the field.
It would be incredible to see that become the norm. But how do we make it more than just a symbol? How do we ensure that those principles are actually put into practice?
That's where things get tricky. It requires a collective effort. Developers, policymakers, educators, the public, everyone needs to be involved in creating a culture of ethical AI development. It's about embedding those principles into every stage, from research and design to deployment and oversight.
So it's a systemic shift, a change in how we think about and approach AI as a society. Not just about individual developers taking an oath, but a whole new set of ethical frameworks and accountability structures.
Exactly. It's a long-term goal, a journey, not a destination, and there will be bumps along the way. But the ancient Greeks, they faced their own dilemmas with technology and power, and their insights can guide us as we navigate the uncharted waters of the AI age.
It's not about romanticizing the past or copying their solutions exactly. It's about learning from their struggles and their triumphs and applying their wisdom to the challenges we face today.
And it's about recognizing that the future of AI isn't predetermined. It's something we're creating right now through our choices, our actions, our commitment to building a world where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
That's a powerful message, and I think it's a perfect note to end on. We've explored a lot in this deep dive into Demosthenes Emergency Broadcast, from the dangers of AI to the potential benefits, the ethical considerations, and these Athenian-inspired solutions for building a more resilient and humane future. But this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Absolutely. We encourage all our listeners to keep exploring these issues, to engage in dialogue, to ask tough questions, and to demand that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create. So let's go out there and build a future worth living in. A future where technology empowers us to be our best selves and create a world that's a little bit wiser, a little bit kinder, and a little bit more human.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked your curiosity, your critical thinking, and your commitment to building a better future with AI. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.